quarter of a mile, keep right to continue towards Tons Lane, A355. Keep right. In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto A355. In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4. Continue on M4 for 5 miles.
The problem with having a no-fly zone, you need really an UN ratification to do so, and that of course is not going to happen with Russia having a veto in the Security Council. Can NATO enforce a non-UN backed no-fly zone, Nick? Well, that's a big step. And what happens then? You know, when they come across Russian fighter bombers? You know, I mean, this is a serious possibility.
You're in a serious situation as ever. Look after yourself, old sport. Kim Sen-Gupta, thank you. World Affairs Editor for The Independent. Good friend to the show, indeed. Personal friend for goodness how many years. Joining us live from Kyiv. 7:12. Let's go to this idea, which I'm going to be asking you, the Elven no-fly zone being imposed. This obviously would be enormous assistance. And while the sentiments that are expressed from Prince Charles, from Boris Johnson, from Joe Biden, they don't actually stop the bombs, do they? And we understand in some instances now there has been Russian shelling, even of orphanages. Incredible. Let's turn to Jim Townsend, Senior Fellow at the Centre for New American Security and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defence for European and NATO Policy at the Pentagon, joining me now. Were your counsel sought, Mr. Townsend, about imposing a no-fly zone, what would your advice be? Good morning.
Good morning. My advice would be, if we want to have war with Russia, we could do a no-fly zone. We have done no-fly zones before in the Middle East. I've been part of those. It calls for a lot more than just aircraft. It calls for suppression of enemy air defense. It calls for taking out radars. So it's not just going up against aircraft. And the problem in Ukraine is not necessarily aircraft. It's not the Russian aircraft. It's what's happening with these ballistic missiles. It's what's happening with these missile launchers that are in these long convoys. We've got to get ammunition and equipment to the Ukrainian ground forces to take those out. It's not the aircraft, it's these ballistic missiles.
If you're familiar with, some of my listeners have been talking about the possibility of what I believe in Israel they call a dome, which is like a protective shield that is put over part of the country. Again, you'll be far wiser than I in this area. Is something, obviously it takes time, but could something like that be looked at?
That's one of the many things I wish we had done a year or two ago. The Iron Dome, which is what you're talking about, that Israel uses, has proven very effective. The thing is, 2 years ago or a year ago, we didn't think that there'd be ballistic missiles raining down on Kyiv, down on Kharkiv, down on the Ukrainian people. If we had known that, we would have worked with Ukraine to give them something similar, but we waited too late.
So I'm sure the images of the properties being blown up, children being killed, disturb you as much as they do anyone else. What more support can, in practical terms, be provided? Hearing what you say about risking a world war if you were to try and impose this no-fly zone, Mr. Townsend.
Well, I think the top priority right now, and based on your last caller there, is the humanitarian assistance. It's food, it's medical equipment, it's water, it's the basics for these cities that are going to be cut off by these Russian forces. We also can provide more air defense in terms of dealing with those aircraft. A no-fly zone is fine, but you know, you can also have a virtual no-fly zone if you've got the air defense, the ground-based air defense that the Ukrainians need. So on the one hand, it's ground-based air defense, stingers. On the other hand, is humanitarian supplies quickly moving into these Ukraine cities.
And lastly, do you see a position where what's called an off-ramp can be created for Putin?
Putin will take an off-ramp only when he feels real pain that he knows is too intense to survive in Moscow, whether it's with oligarchs or surging crowds in the street. If he feels that he's going to face a defeat, or that Ukraine is going to be too hard for him to occupy once the fighting ends, he'll be looking for an off-ramp. We're going to have to come up with something that works. But that takes us back to where we were a month or two ago when we were urging him not to attack, coming up with something that would work for the West as well as for Russia. We didn't find the answer then. We've got to find it now. That's the only off-ramp that'll work.
Really grateful for your time this morning. Thank you, Jim Townsend, your Senior Fellow at the Centre for New American Security and former Deputy Assistant Director of Defence for European and NATO Policy, serving at the Pentagon. Staying with United States matters, coming up after the news, Joe Biden with a less than inspiring State of the Union address.
God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you. Go get him.
What does that mean? What does it mean? Understandably, you don't even want to fly a no-fly zone. So go get him or go get in? In what way? We'll look at that after the 7:16 LBC News headlines here. Holly Harris.
After several days of bombardment, Russian paratroopers are now understood to have landed in Ukraine's second city of Kharkiv. President Biden says Vladimir Putin has grossly underestimated the unity of the West. Further sanctions against Russia are expected to be announced in the UK later. The weather cloudy and wet for most, but staying fine in Scotland to start, a high of 11 Celsius.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb. On the Underground offered a strike yesterday. The Central and Victoria lines are now running, but the Bakerloo line can run apart from the stretch between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone, but all the other lines are suspended. Lots of London Overground stations are closed, including Whitechapel and Black Horse Road. Also on the train, South Western Railway services can't run between Barnes and Twickenham, and that's because of an investigation. On the roads, long delays on the M25 anti-clockwise to junction 29 at the A127. That's after an accident, and also anti-clockwise it's slow at junction 25 at the A10 after a van overturned. The North Circular Road closed westbound at the Crooked Billet interchange. There are severe delays on the approach.
This is LBC. Work. It's changed a bit, hasn't it? Everyone's got to be a bit more flexible.
loan costs. Hey, Ed, come down and get your free 7-day trial at circleloop.com. Circle Loop, now you're talking.
It's that time of night, Jane.
Bedtime?
No, time to film Gary shaking his money maker.
But it's so dark.
His booty will shine brightly with your Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra.
Oh, he's so crisp.
That's nightography, Jane, and overconfidence.
Get back out there with the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. Buy yours at Samsung.com and grab some epic Galaxy Buds Pro on us. Purchase by 5th of April and claim on website within 60 days. Terms apply.
Imagine you in a nice comfy seat, with your hands behind your head, taking in the views, instead of taking on the road, maybe even taking a nap. That's the bliss of getting where you need to go without worrying about driving. Book your train journey via avantywestcoast.co.uk and we'll take you there. Avanti West Coast. Feel good travel.
When your tenants have a burst pipe, superheroes crashing through the wall isn't going to help anyone. With Direct Line Landlord Emergency added to your policy, we're on it to send a rather super plumber in 4 hours and guarantee they'll use the doorbell. We can also assemble locksmiths, glaziers, electricians and drainage engineers. Search Direct Line Landlord Emergency. We're on it. Direct Line. Residential properties. Optional add-on up to 1,500 per call-out. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
7:21, the idea of that no-fly zone. Jackson, you'll be the first caller on that. Let me quickly walk you through the front pages of the newspapers. The Daily Telegraph, Zelensky pleads with West to prevent genocide. I do sense there's obviously the President Zelensky there was the journalist. I think we can use the word confronting Boris Johnson yesterday. I think there is a sense now that there needs to be more direct action from the West. Quite what that might be, I don't know. It leads us into the conversation about the no-fly zone. I'll give you those headlines again, because of course there is this supposed siege for Kyiv. Desperate rush for the last train from Kyiv is the front page of The Guardian. The siege of Kyiv is the front page of The Eye. Blitzed but never beaten, and a defiant President Zelensky on the front page of the Daily Express with that raised fist. That's also used very big on the front page of the Daily Mirror. Nobody will break us. Barbaric is the front page of The Sun, and they point out that Russian forces, obviously on the orders of Vladimir Putin, bombed a memorial site where 100,000 victims of the Nazis are buried. This is, I'm hoping to say this correctly, the Babin Yar site. That was taken out, which seems the most extraordinary decision. Pray for Kyiv is the gloomy front page of the Daily Mail. The Times, leave now. Putin warns he prepares to bombard Kyiv. The Metro goes with the line that they are shunned by the world now. This is the walkout at the UN that I mentioned right at the top of the show. On the OBC website there is again a helpful map to you. We've probably learned more about Ukraine in the last 7 days than the year before, for many of us at least. And there is that map again, giving you an indication of where the Russian forces are, where the Russian forces are believed to have taken a degree of control, and it speaks of the battle to flee Kyiv. And just quickly, we're going to look at this with journalist Andrew Feinberg a little bit later. The reaction to the President of the United States' State of the Union address, the big sort of set piece. And I have to say that the New York Post, which is very much owned by Rupert Murdoch, it's very much a sort of sun, if you will, in New York. In their editorial, they say that his State of the Union address was bumbling hypocrisy. The New York Times, which you would have expected to be a bit more of a cheerleader, they have got a picture on the front page of their edition today, but my goodness me, it's about the size of a postage stamp, and they would normally be supporters. They say he sought to rally the world against Putin. And the Wall Street Journal, again, you have to hunt to find coverage. In the State of the Union, Biden says Putin miscalculated. There is an extraordinary amount of traffic now on Twitter and other forms of social media saying that the fact that he mistook the Ukrainians for Iranians and then didn't correct it. And by the way, it's not like it's off the cuff. A and 1, he will have had opportunity to read it. B and 2, he will have rehearsed it. C and 4, just checking. C and 3, it's on an auto script for him to read. And I'm told that behind him you can see the Vice President mouth the word Ukrainians. Anyway, back to that in a moment. Jackson and Dagenham, no-fly zone. It's a very simple question. Yes or no to a no-fly zone?
Yes, Nick. The reluctance to do that no-fly zone is shocking. One of your correspondents just said that the convoy, that long convoy, is reluctant to move forward because they don't have air cover from their own side, the Russians. We should be there, denying them that possibility of getting that air cover.
You realise that will, I'm not saying you're wrong, Jackson, just listen to me, that could push us to the brink of a third world war.
It will not. It will not.
But how?
What we've got is a KGB bluff, and it seems like we're falling for it. One of your correspondents talked about an off-ramp. In order to provide that off-ramp, first we have to provide an off-ramp for his military. That is the only way that Putin is going to realise.
No one knows what goes on inside of the mind of Putin, but I think confronting him and being seen to confront Putin and then expecting him to search for the off-ramp is highly unlikely, Jackson. He's not the sort of man who... We're battling with your line, we might have to let go. Lose face. Final point for you, Jackson. No, I think... I'm really grateful, buddy. Thank you. I'll take it as a yes vote. I'm sorry you weren't able to come back and counter the other argument, but wherever you are, safe travelling. I hope to talk to you again soon. More calls on this in a moment, 7:25. Now let's come to that. It's the big set piece. All presidents give their State of the Union address, and to use an advertising expression, it does what it says on the tin. It is the State of the United States. And of course, last night it was Joe Biden had to address. Well, among other matters, there were domestic affairs he touched on as well. But obviously, when the world was watching for, what's his view on Ukraine? And he praised the resistance that has been shown by Ukrainian people.
He may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never weaken the resolve of the free world.
A slightly embarrassed start of applause when they realised it was wrong, didn't they? So what actually will the West and the US, obviously a key component, what are they actually going to do to help Ukraine in its hour of need?
The Russian economy is reeling, and Putin alone is the one to blame. Together with our allies, we're providing support to the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Military assistance, economic assistance, humanitarian assistance. We're giving more than $1 billion of direct assistance to Ukraine, and will continue to aid the Ukrainian people as they defend their country and help ease their suffering.
And to his rallying sign-off.
And we'll be stronger a year from now than we are today. This is our moment to meet and overcome the challenges of our time. And we will, as one people, one America, the United States of America. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you. Go get him.
Andrew Feinberg is a Washington-based political reporter, contributor to The Independent, joins me now. It's getting a bit of a poor response on social media. How should it be judged, what we heard from the President, in your view, last night, Andrew? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I think what the President set out to do last night, and he used this word early on, was reset his presidency, reset what his administration is perceived to be doing and what it's actually doing. And to that, I think he succeeded. The Ukraine section of the speech was very well received. And then the balance of it, he didn't lay out any sweeping new proposals. He didn't go through a massive to-do list, other than things that he's talked about a lot before. He did not frame it in the context of his Build Back Better plan. That's dead. He did say that he had a plan called Building a Better America, but it's not going to be a massive legislative package. So I think he got the basics done. And for him at this point, with polling being what it is, the midterms coming up, this speech was about the basics.
And how is he faring in the polling, Andrew?
Not so good. Recent approval ratings have been around 41%, which is just a bit better than his predecessor was doing. Polarization in the U.S. being what it is, he could be doing a lot worse. The fact that he's ahead of the former president is a mark in his favor. It's really hard to look at polling like that right now. and get a legitimate sense of what's going on, because things being what they are in this country right now, half the country is going to say they disapprove of any Democrat who is president, and they don't really think about anything else other than the letter that comes after their name.
Andrew, thanks for that. I sense we'll be talking particularly as we come to those midterms. Andrew Feinberg, Washington-based political reporter and contributor to The Independent. Let's pick up on Joe Biden's less than impressive display. Gay in Bath. Gay, it was pretty lame, wasn't it? Good morning.
Well, I wish for a start you'd give him a bit of slack. He's got a speech...
He's president. Hang on. No, I'm sorry. If you put yourself up as president of the United States, well, I don't know that it's quite a speech impediment. He has a slight
He does have a speech impediment.
Hold on. I'm so sorry, Gay. Please let me say this. Then don't stand as president of the free world, okay? If you put yourself up for the job, you've got to be like me. I get the most abusive texts and emails, which is great. I love them. I tell my children some of them. It's hilarious. I love it. And I just accept it. And if you're the president of the States, you're going to get criticism. Come on.
You had Trump.
Yeah?
That man was an idiot. But I don't particularly like the man, so
I don't particularly like the man, but
we have people saying Kyiv, we have people saying Kiev, we have people saying Vladimir Zelensky,
and we have one person deciding Ukraine is in fact Iran, and that would be President Biden.
But the speech impediment that he has, and was when he became president, it was talked about quite a bit that it's problems with ours, which couldn't come at a worse time, I know. But with all the stuff that's going on at the moment, Nick, I wish people would move away from that. Everybody knew what he meant. People might have cringed about it. It was the night of everybody jumping up and down and clapping like seals because it's the State of the Union.
You don't find it rather worrying that the president says we must deploy our troops over the Iran situation when he means the Ukraine situation? You don't find that rather troubling?
It's in the R's.
It is.
Move away from it. There's more things. There's people dying and people...
Well, there are. That's why it might be nice to take a lead from him. But Gay... Yeah. Grateful for your input. You look after yourself. Have yourself a safe day. Thank you. This conversation will continue. Also coming up after the news, Defence Secretary Ben Wallace said, why is that 40-mile convoy that was inching towards Kyiv yesterday appear to be stalled? We'll ask him that among other questions. 7:31, breakfast with me, Nick Ferrari, here on LBC. The news read by Holly Harris.
Russian forces have warned residents in the Ukrainian capital to leave their homes as they plan to strike key security and communication services in Kiev. The TV tower has already been destroyed, killing 5 people. In the country's second largest city of Kharkiv, the city's central square...
In 1.5 miles, at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
Joe Biden has closed US airspace to Russian planes and says authorities will seize assets from Russian oligarchs, including private jets, yachts and property. In his State of the Union address overnight, he accused President Putin of launching a premeditated and unprovoked attack on Ukraine. And Poland says more than 450,000 people have entered the country from Ukraine since the invasion started last Thursday. The weather cloudy and wet in most parts of the UK and thick fog in the southwest and Wales. Scotland will be fine to start with some rain arriving from the south later, a high of 11 Celsius.
LBC, good evening and welcome. This is Andrew Marr. Tonight with Andrew Marr on LBC. I was looking for a place where I could speak frankly. That's LBC. I was looking for somewhere that is fast moving, exciting, fresh. That's LBC. Tonight with Andrew Marr. This is a new kind of show. I want to call things out. If someone is lying, I want to say that they're lying. Starts this Monday. 6 p.m. is more or less the perfect time. LBC is now the only place to go. Tonight with Andrew Marr. Starts this Monday from 6 p.m. Listen on your radio and watch on Global Player. LBC.
We don't do slapdash. We don't do sloppy. We don't do bodge jobs. And we never do that'll do. We do a job properly. We're Trusted Trader, and we're proud of all our members and the great work they do in homes like yours. So when you need something doing, from locksmiths to landscaping, just type it into trustedtrader.com and you'll get reputable, reviewed tradespeople in your area, because you can always trust a trader.
Picture this. Static cars, idling...
In a quarter quarter of a mile at junction 4B, exit towards M3, M23.
Picture you zooming past it all, light and breezy. The sweet feeling of whizzing past traffic. Book your train journey via avantywestcoast.co.uk. Avanti West
Exit at junction 4B, then keep right at the fork.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nikki Kanani, GP and Medical Director of Primary Care in England. COVID-19 is still with us, so it's good that 12 to 15-year-olds can now get a second COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccines give your children the best possible protection against the virus and help to keep them in school.
Keep right at the fork.
Vaccinated 12 weeks after their first dose. Book online or find your nearest walk-in centre at nhs.uk/.
Continue on M25 south for 1.5 miles.
The hardest things become simple. It's why a black cab can navigate without a map, and why Sterling Ackroyd can sell or let your property for an outstanding price. Our unique knowledge means we know exactly what buyers and renters in London and the South East want. So profit from our experience and book your free valuation now at sterlingackroyd.com. Sterling Ackroyd. Experience behind us.
It was the worst day of Fiona Simpson's professional life.
It really wasn't that bad.
The heavens poured.
It was a light drizzle.
And Fiona had a virtual sales pitch with the devil.
It was with Neville, our client. We're with BT, so our connection didn't play out.
Way to ruin the story, Fiona. Cut the drama with BT's always connected guarantee. So it's all business, no drama. Search BT Business to find out more. BT, beyond limits. T's and C's apply. 89% UK availability. 4G coverage required.
In half a mile at junction 14, use the left 2 lanes to take the A3113 exit to Heathrow Airport. Use the left 2 lanes to exit at junction 14, then keep right.
736, 2 aspects we're exploring then the possibility.
Keep right.
No-fly zone. Bear in mind all experts say that will push us closer to some kind of greater conflagration, if not a war. And how joke might be fair. Let's get into the world of business now. I'm trying to get by Susanna Streeter, who's senior markets commentator at Hargreaves Lansdown. And again, the business agenda really pretty much featuring all Russian-related stories. Let's start with Centrica. Susanna, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, Nick, following the moves by BP and Shell and other companies around the world to freeze out Russia. Centrica.
In a quarter of a mile at the roundabout, take the first exit onto Airport Way, A3113.
In 2012, that deal was due to run out in the summer of 2025. It's come under scrutiny, given the state energy giant's role, of course, in supplying so many thousands of British businesses, but now it says it is cutting ties, falling into line in many ways. And obviously there are concerns, Nick, about what position this will leave Centrica in, giving soaring gas prices and supply concerns. And although it can't immediately say what volume of gas it was contracted to buy from Gazprom, it said it's equivalent to less than 10% of its summer 2022 needs and none of its winter needs. So some relief there, but still questions about supply going forward.
So often I discuss the sports pages headlines with you, but I will today, Susanna. Heat on Roman Abramovich to sell Chelsea, says the Daily Mail. US investors prepare bids for Chelsea, says the Eye. This pressure's growing, isn't it?
In a quarter of a mile at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Southern Perimeter Road.
Step back from his duties as owner. Roman Abramovich, of course, did push Chelsea into a trust and handed over to trustees, but actually a number of those trustees have stepped down, and so that's sparked these rumours that the club in fact will be sold. And according to reporters, a number of different reports coming out, some kind of change in ownership does now look like it's going to be a realistic prospect, with 3 bids potentially on the table coming through this week.
Susanna, thank you. Susanna Streeter, senior markets commentator with Hargreaves Lansdown.
LBC Business Update.
With Direct Line Business Insurance, receive the support of a dedicated claims handler should you need it.
Just before I come back to your calls, James, you're going to be the next caller. As I said yesterday, and I repeat today, compared with Kyiv or Kharkiv...
Exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road.
...disruption in London today as a result of the tube strike. There is no strike today, but of course, the trains are not necessarily...
In 200 yards, the Western Perimeter Road roundabout, take the second exit and stay on Southern Perimeter Road.
Yes, on the underground, the Central and Victoria lines are the only two lines that are fully running. Most of the Bakerloo line can run apart from the stretch between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone. But that's it for the moment. Now, I was told about 7:30 more lines would start to run from TfL, but so far no more lines are up and running. And then by the middle of the
exit the roundabout onto Southern Perimeter Road. Continue on Southern Perimeter Road for 1.5 miles.
Stations are closed, so even if your line is running like the Victoria line running, you can't get on at Tottenham Hale Station, so that station's closed. So a massive disruption again this morning.
Joe, thanks. Be sure to listen to Joe and her colleagues through the course of the day. Hopefully they'll get the trains roughly in the right position by rush hour this afternoon. And then, of course, it's another strike day tomorrow. Put a line through this week if you rely on the underground, I'm afraid to say. Let's go back to another city, Washington, where President Joe Biden gave his State of the Union, as all presidents do, attracting a lot of criticism on social media, which doesn't necessarily mean, of course, that it was no good. Let's get the view of James in Merthyr Tydfil. You watched or listened to it, I understand, James, is that correct?
I watched it last night with the Daily Wire, basically, on backstage. I was quite surprised, really.
Right.
It was like a State of the Ukraine address.
Right.
How it went on. It basically went through that Mr. Biden is going to find a cure for cancer when he can't even basically secure his southern border. But he did acknowledge that he has a problem with immigration and needs to be sorted, which he had a round of applause for. But what I couldn't understand with Nick, he was blaming the rampant inflation on greedy corporations, not the fact that he's done quantitative easing and he's caused most of it by putting 40% of new money back into circulation. He had no plan, and basically he looked like he was plagiarising some of Trump's bits because he was on about immigration, building back America greater. He looked so lame then, Nick. It was laughable.
Well, unfortunately, it's difficult to laugh because he's supposedly the most powerful man in the Western world, but he can't currently tell the difference between Iran and Ukraine. James, thank you for your view on that. No-fly zone, 7:41. It's a yes or no to no-fly zone. Charlie and Dorking, which is it?
At the moment, Nick, no. I listened to James Townsend this morning and about what he had to say. Just touching on what the Polish reporter said to Boris Johnson about World War III had already started. And, Nick, World War IV is going to be 46 stones. So we've got to be really careful here. I'm not saying give up any pressure on Putin.
How can we do more? Is there a bit further we can go?
We have to carry on doing what we're doing. As soon as we go in, we give him the opportunity then to say, right, everybody's sending their planes over to us, because I've got no doubt in my mind he will escalate it. He's narrowly, come on, he ain't all there.
He's not the full ruble. I think that probably makes a lot of sense, Charlie. Thank you for that. Joy in Northampton. Joy, yes or no to no-fly zone?
Well, a part of me says yes. And my question is the whole world afraid of Putin?
Yeah.
Are we afraid of Putin?
That's a very... I don't know if I'm afraid of what he could do. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. Are you?
No, I don't see one man that we don't even know his mental well-being to take the whole world hostage. That is what he's done now. What guarantees do we have that after he's finished whatever he wants to do with the Ukraine?
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Beacon Road.
No guarantees whatsoever.
No. So we have to do something. We have to stop that man in his track. We do not know his mental well-being.
You know that will almost certainly mean that British lives will be put at risk. Almost certainly British lives will be lost. I'm not saying you're wrong.
No, everyone didn't believe he would go in. We thought he might not. He did go in. Look at that man is off rail now.
Yes.
I mean, our intelligence has to be used. Maybe intelligence used and kidnapped our man. But if we leave him, we don't know the lesson.
Exit the roundabout onto Beacon Road. In 100 yards, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Stanwell Road.
Jason in Southampton, yes or no to no-fly zone?
Definitely not, Nick.
Right.
Good morning, Nick. Definitely not. I think you need to ask all these armchair warriors.
Exit the roundabout onto Stanwell Road. Continue on Stanwell Road for half a mile.
To be honest, Nick, I'm almost at the point that we don't help them anymore.
Oh, God. We watch orphanages get bombed.
Well, Nick, I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I'm thinking at the meantime. I can remember when the United Kingdom sovereign soil was invaded by a foreign aggressor in the 1980s. And the rest of the world told us, not our problem. And the French carried on selling Mexican missiles.
This is to the Argentinians, yeah. And America was less than helpful, actually, on that occasion.
No, I understand we've moved on and there's differences, and I understand all these sort of things, but at the end of the day, we can help them fight, but we don't launch we don't put our own military in there.
Jason, thank you. More calls on that. Are you afraid of Vladimir Putin? Coming up after the news, the Defense Secretary, this 40-mile-long convoy of Russian vehicles stuck around 20 miles away from the borders, the outskirts of Kyiv. Does Ben Wallace, do the British authorities know why? We'll ask him right after this. 7:45 LBC News headlines. Holly Harris.
The governor of Kharkiv.
In 200 yards, turn right onto Hatton Road.
Bombardment of Ukraine's second largest city. Moscow has warned residents in Kiev to leave as it plans to strike key communication targets in the capital. Joe Biden has closed US airspace to Russian planes and says Russian oligarchs' assets will be
Turn right onto Hatton Road, then turn left onto Staines Road.
To start, a high of 11 Celsius.
LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb on the Underground. After the strike yesterday, the Central and Victoria lines are running. Most of the Bakerloo line can run, except for the stretch between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone. But all the other lines remain suspended, and DLR trains can't run between Shadwell and Bank. There's also a lot of stations closed as well. And then also on the train, South Western Railway services can't run between Barnes and Twickenham, but that's because of an investigation. On the roads, long delays on the M25 in two places, both anti-clockwise to junction 29 at the A127 and also to junction 25 at the A10. And the North Circular Road remains closed westbound at the Crooked Billet interchange because of an investigation, and there are severe delays on the approach.
This is LBC.
Sharon, I don't know how we'll cope without you.
Fred's busy legal firm needs a receptionist for maternity cover. A new arrival who can step in until Sharon returns.
We'll see you next year.
Indeed can help him find great people.
Turn left onto Staines Road, A315.
Indeed you do.
In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, continue straight to stay on Staines Road, A315. a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Shaftesbury Avenue.